Hello everyone and welcome back to English with Lucy. Today we are going to be talking about the prepositions in, on and at. They are prepositions of time and place. Is it in the morning, on the morning or at the morning? Why do we say at Christmas but on Christmas Day? Why do you go in a taxi but on a bus? That is what we are going to discuss in today's English lesson. As always, there is a free PDF that goes with this lesson. It's got all of the information from the lesson plus a quiz that I think you'll really like. You can use it to check that you've really understood how to use in, on and at as prepositions of place and prepositions of time. If you would like the free PDF, click on the link in the description box, you enter your name and your email address, you sign up to my mailing list, and I send the PDF directly to your inbox. Let's start with in, on and at as prepositions of time. When we look at in, on, at, we move from general to more specific. That's a really good way to think of things. In is very general, on is quite general, and at is normally more specific. Let's take a look at in first. Firstly, we use in to talk about periods of time, general periods of time, because in is very general. In the future, in the past, in the present. Some examples. In the future, I'd like to get married. In the past, I studied hard at school. In is also used to talk about years, and I mean individual years like 1991, for example, groups of years, decades and centuries. In 1994, I was born. I was born in the 90s. My great-grandfather was born in the 19th century. Or maybe he wasn't. My great-great-grandfather was born in the 19th century, I think. We also use in to talk about seasons. These are big parts of the year. In summer, in winter. In autumn, I love seeing the changing of the leaves. In spring, I feel really positive. We also use in to talk about months and weeks. In June, in November, in 5 weeks' time, in a few weeks. These all use in. In June, I will be 27. I can't believe that. Or hopefully lockdown in the UK will end in a few weeks. Who knows? If you're from the future, can you tell me? I would really like to know. Lastly, we use in to talk about parts, general parts of days. For example, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, I like to relax and play board games. So that's clear. In is general. Let's move on to on. It's much more specific, but not quite as specific as at. We use on to talk about dates. For example, on the 10th of June 1994, I was born. I'm sorry, I bring my birthday into everything. I really enjoy my birthday. Another example, on his birthday. On his birthday, he went out for a meal. We also use on to talk about holidays that include the word day. On Christmas Day. On New Year's Day. On a bank holiday. A bank holiday is a day where schools are closed and normally we don't have to work, and most importantly, banks are closed. That's why it gets its name. They normally fall on a Monday, so you have a nice long weekend. I love bank holidays. So we don't say on Christmas, but we do say on Christmas Day. I wonder if you can guess which preposition we use for Christmas. We also use on for days of the week. On Monday, on Friday evening, on Saturday morning. On is also used for days of the month. On the 4th of July, on the first day of September. Remember that in American English and British English, we say dates differently. So I would say on the 4th of May. They might say May 4th. I do have a video on how to say and write dates in English. It's very old. I probably look very, very young in it. I will leave it in the description box for you. I have one miscellaneous, slightly random one, and that is on time. On time. I arrived to work on time, at the correct time. Okay, let's move on to at, the most specific preposition. We use at to talk about specific times. At 10 a.m., at 3 o'clock, at lunchtime, at sunset, at sunrise, at the moment, right now. You will often see us saying ATM for at the moment in spoken slang English. What are you doing, ATM? What are you doing at the moment? That's a good one to remember. We also use at to talk about holidays without the word day. So at Christmas I like to spend time with my family. Although I didn't get to this year, thanks COVID. At Easter, so it's on Easter Sunday or at Easter when we're talking about the whole weekend of Easter. One last miscellaneous one we have at night. At night. In the PDF I mentioned before, I have included a quiz, so you can check your understanding of in, on, and at as prepositions of time. The link for that is in the description box. Let's move on to in, on, and at as prepositions of place. And I have some good news. In, on, and at as prepositions of place also follow that same rule as before. In is more general, on is in the middle, and at is more specific. If you're stuck in an exam, just keep that in your head. At least you can have a good estimation of which preposition to use. Let's start with in again, nice and general in. In is used to talk about countries. I am in England. He is in Ireland. We also use in to talk about cities, very general once again. I stayed in Jakarta, in Seville. When I went to Italy, I stayed in Palermo. Like cities, we also use in for neighbourhoods and large areas. For example, in the Cotswolds. The Cotswolds is a beautiful large area of England. Or in Kensington. That's a big neighbourhood in London. We also use in for enclosed spaces, and this is an important one to remember. We are in a taxi, in a car. Now I'll talk about trains and buses later on because we don't use in with them, we use on. And I like to think that because taxis, cars and helicopters are small spaces and you have to crouch down and make yourself small to get into them, we use in. We also use in for in a classroom, in the house, in the books. Finally, we use in for books and newspapers. In the Times, in the dictionary. I saw that in the newspaper. Let's move on to on. This is less general than in, but not quite as specific as at. We use on to talk about streets or roads or avenues. On Fleet Street, on Fifth Avenue, on the King's Road. We also use on to talk about surfaces. On the floor, on the ceiling, on the roof, on the table. We also use on to talk about floors of buildings. Her office is on the first floor. I am on the top floor. Important, we use on to talk about public transport. On the train, on a bus, on a plane. So it's in a taxi, car, helicopter, on a train, bus, tram, plane. These are less enclosed spaces. In general, you can enter them and remain standing up. That's how I like to think of them. Finally, we use on for communications and media. On the TV, on the internet, on the news, meaning on the news on TV, on the radio. I was on the radio last week. Did you hear me? Finally, we have at. Very specific, usually. We use at for addresses. These are very specific. Number 10, High Street, or the Red House, Bedford Street. In England, most houses have house numbers, but especially in villages or for very big houses, some have names. Whenever I've lived in a city, my house or flat has always had a number, but where I grew up and where I live now, I live in a rural location. There aren't many people nearby. We have a house name. We also use at for specific locations. I am at the bus stop. He is at the museum. At is also used for shops, at the coffee shop, at the bakery, at the butcher's. We also use at for group activities. At a party, at a concert, at a theatre. An important one to remember is that we use at for home, work, and places of study. I'm at school, I'm at university, I'm at work, I'm at home. We also use at with top, bottom, end, start. For example, at the end of the river, at the top of the page, at the bottom of the stairs. Finally, this one is slightly strange, but do you remember I said we use on for surfaces? So my laptop is on my desk. However, I am sitting at my desk. You sit at a table, at a surface, but you put your things on a table, on a surface. If I were to get up and sit on top of my desk, then I would be on the desk. Right, that is it for today's lesson. Again, I have included a quiz for in, on, and at prepositions of both place and time. If you would like to do the quiz, click on the link in the description box. You sign up to my mailing list and I send the quiz and all of the information directly to your inbox, and you can share your results in the comments section down below. Don't forget to connect with me on all of my social media. I've got my Instagram, my Facebook, and my website, englishwithlucy.co.uk. I will see you soon for another lesson. Mwah!